Hey guys, we have finally arrived at the Tailwind Analytics presentation. I have referenced this presentation a few times, many times over the last few presentations that we've done. It's a very, very important lesson. We're going to talk about the Tailwind dashboard. These are all the different sections, by the way. Monitor your domain, profile performance, virality and engagement scores, board insights, and optimizing content. Those are all kind of the different sections that we're going to be talking about in the Tailwind dashboard. Why is this important? Without Tailwind, you are pinning blind and you're relying on the limited data provided by the Pinterest analytics to determine whether what you're doing is working or not. Tailwind is absolutely essential to growing your business quickly. It tells you exactly what's working and what's not so that you can change course quickly. It helps you decide on the best pinning strategies, and it also helps you track your growth, which is just extremely important to growing quickly on Pinterest. Otherwise, you're just kind of playing the game just like everybody else, but these analytics really give you a step up over everyone else, and if you pay really close attention to them, they will reward you. You will be able to change your strategy, and again, it's really just about doing it quickly, right? Finding out what works within 2 weeks rather than 6 months. And if you see spikes in traffic or really bad dips in traffic, you can kind of go back to your analytics and see, okay, why did this happen? I cannot stress the importance enough. You are not going to grow quickly on Pinterest if you don't invest in Tailwind Analytics. So this is the dashboard, and this is kind of what you hit when you first get on Tailwind. You can also get to it by clicking this weekly summary as well. One of the first things you should do is complete your profile. So over there in the top right, if you're brand new to Tailwind, they will pinpoint certain things on your Pinterest profile that you could do to optimize it better. For instance, if there are any boards that are missing descriptions, like I have one board that doesn't have a description right now, and they're telling me right there that I need to add a description to that board. If you're missing a board title, if you don't have enough pins on the board, it will point out all these different things that you can do to complete your profile. So make sure you check that out first before you get too deep into Tailwind. Monitoring your domain, this is going to be in the insights. So actually, it's the monitor your domain category, but we're going to talk about insights first. And this gives you some recent insights into pins and pinners. But unfortunately, most of the data here is unavailable in the basic plan. You can see that there are some areas grayed out, and I'm trying to find my mouse. It's not showing up for some reason. For the industry trends up there and the trending topics below, it's all grayed out. It says sample data because you can't see any of it without upgrading to the next plan. I think the next plan on Tailwind, it goes from $10 to $15 a month to, depending on how often you pay for it, to I think $150 or $125 or something, which is just crazy. I've never upgraded that high. I don't think that Tailwind has not showed me yet that the additional insights that you get are worth that kind of money and that kind of difference. So a lot of the stuff in here just isn't useful, and I don't really use it. You're probably not going to use it much. The Pinterest analytics will give you your pin impressions and that sort of stuff. So I don't really use that. The next section on monitor your domain is going to be organic activity. This shows you what is pinned from your website. But note that it actually includes content that you've scheduled as well. So it is not just content that other people are pinning from your website. It's a combination of what you're scheduling and what other people are pinning from your website. So it's not going to be a very accurate display of only what other people are pinning from your website. Next section is referral traffic, and this is referrals from Google Analytics. You have to actually have your Google Analytics account linked up to Tailwind to get this data. This is something else that I just don't really use. I don't pay any attention to. I use my website. I have Jetpack installed on WordPress, and I check my site stats through there, my traffic and visitors. So I don't use this tab as well. I just wanted to kind of point it out to y'all and show you what it was. The next topic we're going to go to is under the tracking your brand page, and it's going to be your profile performance. And right here is the performance scores of your overall Pinterest account. So this is sort of the stuff that I've been talking about, belonging to certain group boards or pinning spam or broken links. This stuff all affects your board scores. And this is how Tailwind ranks you. It doesn't necessarily mean that, this is the exact way that Pinterest has it in their algorithm, and it's probably not, but I think it's a very large factor. So this dashboard right here has your daily follower growth, and I recommend, it also has your weekly, monthly, and yearly trends, but I actually recommend, you can see your follower growth is right over there on the side, and I actually recommend inputting it. Let's look at the screen right here. This is my Tailwind account. You can hover it over it and it'll tell you how many followers you got that day, and you'll notice that it only does it for a week at a time. So what I actually recommend doing is I recommend putting this information in your Pinterest follower tracker. So this is one of the things that was included. It's right down here. Follower tracker is down here in the Pinterest tools for success. And this is something, y'all, that I use I don't use it every day. I use it about every 5 days. I kind of go and I input my followers for the week. And I get this information straight from Tailwind. Oh, wrong tab again. I got too many things open here. And I click on it and I see, okay, March 9th I got 72 followers, March 10th I got 51, and I will input those followers into my spreadsheet. Or the other thing that you can do is you can go straight to Pinterest and every morning at 8 a.m. you can put in the number of followers that you have. Just make sure you're consistent from day to day. You can do it that way as well. It doesn't matter. But I do recommend keeping track of this yourself, because Tailwind only shows you the weekly number of followers, and this kind of spreadsheet will sort of help you just determine from month to month, especially there's different years on here. You might notice, okay, every February there is a big dip. What also you can do is you can kind of widen this a little bit, and you can actually put some notes in here. So when I started using Board Booster, because it wasn't an API approved partner, I wrote in here started Board Booster, so that if I saw a really big dip in followers, I could know, okay, well, I started Board Booster that day. There may be a connection there. The other thing I explained in a different video, that we used to get on average 333 followers a day. And then one day out of the blue, it dropped in half, and our daily average follower growth just dropped in half. And, again, that could have pointed to we're suddenly doing something wrong. Maybe I pinned too much. Maybe my account got blocked. But what I did some research and kind of contacted some other people that I knew and learned that it seemed that it was actually an algorithm change and affected people Pinterest-wide, because most people reported the same exact half. Their followers were cut in half. So I do find it's useful to make some notes whenever you make big changes to your account. And this is just a really great tracker to kind of keep track of algorithm changes and other things. And it's up to you. You may or may not care to track your followers. It's something that I have done since the beginning, and I highly recommend it. Moving on to virality scores. So this is these are going to be these scores right here on your account, and there's 3 different measures here: virality, engagement, and engagement rate. And we're going to talk about all 3 of them. And these are the scores that I've been telling you guys about over and over again in these past few presentations. First up, virality score. What it means is the average repin rate. If you hover over that little question mark right here, this dialog box will pop up and it will remind you of what this score is. And it tells you what it means, how much your pins are being repinned across your profile. So basically, a virality score of 37.70, like mine, means that my pins on average get 37.7 repins. Of course, that's an average, because a lot of pins get much higher than that, a lot of pins get much lower than that. It ends up averaging out to 37.70, and that's an overall account-wide average. So it's kind of an average of all my boards and all my pins. If your virality score drops below the 30-day average, your pins are getting less repins than they were previously. So underneath the 37.70, you'll see it says 37.21. This is my 30-day average, and my virality score is now higher than that. So what that basically means is that my average repins are growing, and that's a good thing. If you dip below this number, what happens is this bar right here, this purple bar, it's actually going to raise up and you're going to see some empty space here. And that kind of means that your average repins are dropping. So this means that you're probably doing something wrong, because you are, and this can happen again when I explain that it's not a good idea to belong to a lot of group boards where your pins get a bunch of zeros on them, because if you throw out a bunch of pins that start getting a bunch of zero repins, your virality score is going to start to drop. So keep that in mind. And this is the definition straight from the Tailwind blog. If you visit the Tailwind blog that I explained before, they'll give you kind of a page that has their definitions of all this, and they kind of have a couple screenshots here, and they just have a little description here. Your virality score represents how many repins per pin you get on average. This lets you know if your content is performing well on Pinterest. The bold number above is the all-time number. So we're dividing your total number of repins by your total number of pins. And if you're looking at the boards in the board insights virality, you're seeing the total number of repins of the pins on that board. And it says this score isn't capped, so reach for the stars. You want these scores to keep on growing. And I will get into the individual boards in the next few slides here. But I just wanted to show you that official definition from the Tailwind blog, and you can go check it out as well if you want to. The next score is engagement score. Your engagement rate equals I think I actually meant engagement score there. It equals the average repin you receive for each follower. So basically, in short, it tells you how engaged your audience is with your pins. And the definition right here, what does it mean? Engagement score is a measure of your audience's engagement with your pins, giving you insight into how much interaction your pins are receiving on a per follower basis. And you can't actually see because this dialog box blocked out the score, but the score is shown right here. And again, you want to stay above your 30-day high, or else that means that you are losing engagement with your audience for whatever reason. The definition from the Tailwind blog, it says, and it also tells you how it's calculated up here. This number is a measure of your audience's engagement with your pins, giving you insight into how much interaction your pins are receiving from each follower. If you're looking into your board insights, you are seeing the total number of repins. You're seeing basically just the board insights, and again, the score isn't capped. And it says, expert tip, use virality and engagement scores to cross-reference against the whole profile to see how individual boards are performing. I'm going to show you guys that in the next few slides as well. So here is your engagement rate. Your engagement rate equals a measure of what percentage of your pins have repins. So a score of less than 100 means that you have some pins with 0 repins. It doesn't always seem to be accurate though. It tells you right here, it's really basically a simple way for your content to see how well your content is resonating with your audience. And the score will say 100% most of the time. And when it says 100%, that means that every pin on your profile has at least one repin. And it says right here, 100% means that all of your pins have at least one repin. I don't quite understand this. It might be that aggregate pin counts kind of factor in here, because I know that there are some pins on my profile that have 0 repins. There's not too many, but theoretically this shouldn't be at 100% if that's the case. So I don't really pay much attention to this, but you do want the rate to be at 100. And there's also definition from the Tailwind blog. The engagement rate is measured by counting how many of your pins have at least one repin versus those that have no repins. It's a simple way for you to see how well your content is resonating with your audience. The rate is based out of 100, so the goal here is to get to 100%. So let's talk about your board insights. And this is this tab right over here. The board insights provide the metrics on each individual board's performance over the last 7 days. Knowing which boards are your top performers is a useful tool for your pinning strategies. So basically, this is kind of a screenshot of some of my boards. And let's go over to the Board Insights tab right here so I can kind of show you guys. It's really great. You can, do I have another slide on here? Let's see. I do. You can sort this list based on, so this is this tab right here. I'm gonna go bounce back in just a minute. Let me tell you guys about sorting it first. This Board Insights right here, you can sort it based on these different things. It says pins, followers, repins, virality score, and engagement. You can sort it based on all these different factors, and when it's pins, it's based on the last 7 days. It's all based on the last 7 days, but you can click on these right here and you can sort those based on, if you want to see your top performing virality score, you can see which board is actually gaining the most followers, and that could tell you what board might be keyworded best for SEO, or what board that people what board has a title that maybe, or description that the most people are interested in of all your followers. Again, which boards are getting the most followers, which boards are getting the most repins, how group boards are performing in comparison to your own boards. And you can change the setting to include or exclude secret boards and group boards right up here in these settings. So let's bounce over. I'm just going to kind of show you guys. See, I can click on these things and it will resort these boards. So I find virality score is the best metric right here. So this it basically lets me know that this yoga workouts board, it is my best performing board, and pins get the most repins on this board. So if you want to kind of change your pinning strategy to pin to these higher performing boards more often, that's probably a good idea. What I do is when I produce brand new content, a brand new article with a brand new pin, I will try to pin it to my yoga workouts board or my healthy living board, because those are my highest performing boards, and I like to give that brand new content just a little bit of boost. So that's just very useful to know. Again, you can see where your group boards rank here. These two group boards I have, they rank towards the bottom. So just keep that in mind as well. We talked about that in the group board performance. It also helps to sort them by followers, because you can see which group boards. So this group board down here, best pins, it's got much lower virality score than all my boards, but if I sort by followers, it gets the most followers of all these boards, and they're not my followers, they're the board owner's followers, but that just means that the board is growing very quickly, so it might be another reason why you might want to keep a group board on your account. But just play around with this stuff. You can sort your repins, you can see which boards are getting the most repins, and anyway, it tells you all kinds of stuff. This is where I spend most of my time. You can sort it by just group boards by unchecking these. Then it'll show just group boards, both yours and other people's. And then you can include secret boards or exclude them. I spend most of my time, honestly, on this Board Insights, just kind of tracking different stuff, seeing how things are going. But let's move on to optimized content. This is the other place that I spend the most amount of time. And this is the Pin Inspector under the Optimized Content tab. The Pin Inspector shows you individual pin performance for the last few months. You can see it says 8/23/16 to 3/12/17. And you can sort it by board, by repins, by likes, by comments, or by date pins, or by the date pinned. And note that Tailwind doesn't automatically update. It takes about 12 to 24 hours. So let me hop right over here into the Pin Inspector to show you guys what I do with this. So the main thing that I use the Pin Inspector for is to kind of monitor how my repins have been for the last week or so, or even the last few days. And what I do there is I hit this date pinned. You can actually you could sort by, it defaults to sorting by repins, and it will show you what pin has the highest amount of repins. But keep in mind that this is only by the date pinned of 8/26/2016. It does not show you any data before that. Even if you change this month to earlier than that, it will not show you any data before that time period. I'm not sure why that is. It may be that you have to upgrade. I haven't ever seen anything that's told me that. So it may just be that that's the only date range that you get content for. So keep that in mind. It does not show you the data for anything before before this first date right here. But I like to sort this by date pinned, and then I can kind of see how my repins are averaging over the last few days. But one thing I will notice is I always change this date right here. It's going to automatically default to the day today. But I explained that Tailwind takes about 24 hours to update. So you want to go ahead and click the 15th, the day before, I said the 15th, the day before the day that you're checking this, because the 16th, what's going to happen is it's going to show you a bunch of zeros. See, my last 3 have zeros, because what happens is I've already scheduled those through Tailwind, but they haven't updated my account to show the data back on them yet. So it'll just show you zeros, and it's kind of confusing. Always go to the day before the day that you're checking to get the latest updates. And then I can kind of see how my pins are doing. Sorry about that text that went through. I can see how my pins are doing over the last few days, what's kind of doing well and what's not. Anything that kind of gets a 1 repin, I'm going to kind of look at that and be like, ooh, that pin didn't do well that day. And I'm going to kind of keep scrolling through, and I'm going to look for patterns, because if I see that pin again and it has another 1 or another low score, that might be, that's going to kind of show me, okay, you know what, I probably need to pull that from my schedule, maybe make a new pin, maybe try manually pinning it, but for some reason it's seeming to get low scores. And it will also tell you what's getting really high scores. These new pins I just pinned are getting 18s and 16s. I just pinned them yesterday, so that's pretty good. And just use it again to look for patterns. Look and see which pins over the last few days are getting a lot of repins and what are getting kind of much lower repins. And that's going to help you kind of gauge what content is doing the best. And there are certain boards here. You can sort it by board as well, so you can kind of see what's performing on certain boards better. And of course, you can also reschedule things over here as well. So that is the pin inspector, and I do recommend paying very close attention to that every few days just to see how your content is doing. And that is it for this presentation. I know it's a lot to take in with all the different scores, and there's not a whole lot more I can say to kind of help you sort of understand it and get the knack of it. But the best thing that you can honestly do is just make a habit of waking up in the morning and checking your Tailwind dashboard and checking your stats. See, it's hard to kind of monitor from day to day, because again, the weekends you'll have more pins, more repins on the weekends and such. But I do generally open up my Tailwind dashboard every morning just to kind of see how many followers did I get, and in the past couple of days, how are my pins doing, that sort of stuff. So just get in the habit of tracking as much as possible to help you modify your strategy as you go along. So next up, we are going to talk about some board booster tactics that will kind of help improve your analytics and your scores a little bit better. So I will see you guys on the next presentation.